Originally from the UK, in Boston, Lincolnshire. It confuses the heck out of all the North Americans because they think there's only one Boston. So I correct them and say, no, I'm from the original one. But I now live in Ottawa, which is on the screen to your, like just off center to the right. So I'm going to be talking tonight about, I say haunted Canada, but it's basically Ontario. And we do the pictures that you see around the screen are actually the ones that I'll be talking about. So we'll go into a little bit more detail on those very soon. So a few fun facts about Canada before we actually start. Second largest country in the world by total area. However, about 85% of the population live within 100 miles of the border of the US. So the rest of it is bleak, barren, and like empty. Alexander Graham Bell, who was Scottish born, invented the telephone. So a lot of people think that he did it in Scotland, but he actually did it in Canada. This is one that Caroline will like. Canada has the most donut shops per capita in the world, even more so than the US. So you're not going to, if you live anywhere close to a city or a town, you can get your donuts. The temperatures can be extreme. We do get as vast cold as we do hot. And it's not uncommon for us in Ottawa to get anything between minus 22 to minus 40. And if you do actually go outside, if you've got exposed skin, it can freeze within a couple of minutes. So you need to make sure that you're well wrapped up. So Caroline, when you want to come, make sure you don't come in the deepest, darkest winter because you'll freeze to death. So we do have the world's largest and longest skating rink. When it finally freezes, it's actually 5 mile long. And if you're a fan of all the Hallmark movies, 9 times out of 10, when they go onto a public skateway, it's filmed in Ottawa. We do get a lot of Hallmark films recorded around our way, so you can quite often pick up a lot of locations and like sites that are in within Ottawa. I think Caroline should go to Churchill, Manitoba. It's prime polar bear country. It is customary for locals to leave car doors unlocked so that if you encounter a bear, you can duck into the nearest vehicle for safety. So yeah, let's do a road trip to Churchill and we'll go there in the winter where the polar bears are quite prominent. And one of my favourites, 2015, Canada earned a world record for using the poop emoji. So obviously they had a lot of crap to talk about. As it says, I don't know if they still hold that record today, but poop emojis, who knew? Okay, so I'm part of SEPA, which is the Scientific Investigation of Paranormal Activity. Logan, Volta, and myself created it back in February of 2024. So how this all came about, my wife's bought me a ticket for a haunted walk for Valentine's Day. And she bought me one ticket. She wasn't going to come with me. So great present for Valentine's Day. So we go to this location. Logan and Volta are there doing their own thing. They've got a few pieces of equipment. I'm already with a group that were slow to respond to various requests and things. So I wasn't really happy where I was. So I'm talking to those guys. We decided that we was kind of in the same boat. We decided to meet up a couple of weeks later in a local bar. And that night we decided that we were going to join forces because all three of us are on the same page. All three of us wanted to go down that particular road of doing things the right way. So in that bar on that night, we created SEPA. I can't really remember how we came up with the name, but we were juggling a few words about, and that's how it came up. We did actually Google the word SEPA, and it does belong to, I think it's a local football club in Brazil as well. So no connection. So all three of us do bring different skills and abilities. Logan specializes in the media side of it. He actually works for a film company that does work with Hallmark within Ottawa. So he knows all about cameras and audio, and he's the one that deals with most of the footage that you see on our social media. Volta has a background from Japan. He was born in Brazil, and he's got a lot of the Wiccan and the cryptic kind of skills and abilities. He knows a lot about Ouija boards, about pendulums, and all that kind of stuff. So one of your people that you may know, I actually interviewed in season 1, episode 7 of Super Paranormal Chronicles, which I launched in February 2025. And Caroline was one of the guests, and we've been friends ever since, and hence why I'm here tonight to talk to you guys. So, like I say it's haunted Canada, but it's actually Ontario, and we do have quite a few issues with investigating in Canada. So, the country's absolutely vast. The UK can fit in the province of Saskatchewan. That's how big Canada is. And I'm in Ottawa, Ontario, and you can drive for 24 hours and still be in Ontario. And the roads are straight, flat, and a tad boring in places. So it's not uncommon for us to drive 2 to 3 hours to investigate, which is okay driving there. But when you're doing that at 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, ends up being a long night. There weren't that many major battles inland. You can go back to the American Civil War and all that kind of stuff, but most of the battles were actually close to the Canadian-US border. So we do have a lot of related locations due to battles that are actually more close to the US border than we do inland. One of our main problems is that a lot of the locations are city, private, or government owned. So they're either not easy to book, or you can't book them at all. Or when you do book them, there's a lot of large costs involved. It's not uncommon for it to be $500, $600, $700 to book a venue for 8 hours. One other note to make is that we have a lot of Indigenous history. So a lot of the sites are Indigenous, have Indigenous connections. So these sites are extremely restricted on if you can or if you cannot even investigate. And one thing that we have found out locally is that there were some previous teams, investigators and ghost hunters, that didn't do things the way that most normal people do. So it did put a bad taste into people's mouths about investigators and paranormal investigators. So they don't tend to allow people to come and investigate because of what's happened previously. So one of my favorite locations is a place called SDG Jail, which SDG is Stormont, Dundas and Glengarry. And this is in a small city in Cornwall, Ontario. It's about an hour and 15 minutes away. This place has been on quite a few TV shows. It is extremely popular location to visit. So it was an operational prison from 1833 until its closure in 2002. And even to this day, there are numerous bodies still buried under the exercise yard. And when they actually built an extension, they actually find bodies on a regular basis that were buried there. And even around the basement, if you go into the basement, there's bodies behind the walls. So one of the most notorious inmates was a guy called Henry Seguin. He was scheduled for execution 1954. However, on the day of his execution, they don't know how he did it, but he managed to get some cyanide And as he was being given his last rites by the clergy, he popped this cyanide pill into his mouth, collapsed on the spot, and died exactly where he fell. So his area of the prison is well known for EVPs, shadows, yeah, that kind of stuff. And he is also buried on the grounds. Obviously, with it being a prison, it has a lot of dark history, and like I say, it is a very popular destination. And a lot of the common things that people see and experience are obviously keys and chains rattling. They often hear whistling, and there is rumor that there is a lady in black spirit. So it's an absolutely fabulous place to investigate. This was one of our first investigations as a team, and this is actually one of my first locations that I got some really good EVPs while I was in Canada. So there is still a gallows in the on site. It's not the original one because obviously they're made of wood and they don't kind of last that long. But you can actually go to where the gallows was, and you can see where these unfortunates were hung. So there's also rumor of a young boy called Matthew. Now, Matthew was a son of one of the wardens, as we believe, and it is quite common for him to be playing games around the jail. As it is in its modern day now, you have the old historical jail, but then on the second floor, you actually have a courtroom that is used to this day. It's where the local council do their meetings and all that kind of council stuff. And Matthew is well known for running around the courtroom, and you can quite often hear him play. We've actually had like a Flux 2 activate, and we understand that it was Matthew because when we called out Matthew's name, it activated again. So because of the nature of the building, quite a few of the EVPs are actually quite vulgar and profane language. And as the website says, a lot of them are so rough, you cannot share them with the public. But yeah, I've not heard any of those. I'm quite disappointed, really. Slamming of cell doors and phantom touches are also experienced within the building. So the picture to the bottom right is what's known as the Hell's Angel room. And back in the 50s and 60s, there was a bunch of Hell's Angels that were brought to the prison, and they were specifically put in this location because it was away from the other part of the jail. So to put that into comparison, the picture on the bottom right is the corridor from where you first come into the prison and you do the normal introduction with the guards. That's behind where the cameraman was. The door to the right is where Henry again committed suicide. And if you can see right down the bottom, you can see some black doors or some black gates. That is the Hell's Angel wing. That little corridor to the left is where the rest of the jail goes. So I do have a few audio clips and there's a video clip. So I'm going to show you the video clip first. So if you go left off that corridor and then down the stairs, you come to a section that has only 2 beds in it, and that is the female section. It's the only female section within the building. And then you've got other wings going off left and right. So we'd set up a camera and we'd set up an audio in the female jail cell, and there was nobody within 20 or 30 feet of this particular room. And during review, this is what we actually heard. So that giggling to us, it makes it sound like it's a child giggling. Some people say, well, it sounds like a metal chair moving, but there wasn't any metal leg chairs anywhere close by. So we don't really know where that comes from. And everyone was being quiet at that particular time because we were doing a solo with two female team members in the Hell's Angel wing. So everyone was being quiet around the table where all the audio and the video were. And we actually heard that in review. We didn't hear it in real time. So I'm going to play these next audio and then I'll explain what they are afterwards. If there's anybody here that would like to talk to me, if you could make a sign, make a sound, I would very much appreciate that. So you heard me talking, and I'm actually in the Hell's Angel wing for this first EVP. One of my colleagues was across to the right where Henry Seguin committed suicide, and the other was down the left-hand corridor. So nobody was close by to me. I'm in the Hell's Angel wing by myself. I'm asking people, any spirits, if they can communicate with me. And then at the end, I heard that double breath. I did not hear it at the time. When I reviewed it and I heard it, I sent it to the guys and they all heard a double breath. I have a friend of mine who specializes in audio, and I sent it to him, and he confirmed that the audio hadn't been tampered with, and he actually broke it down even further into voice waves, and my voice wave and the double breath were completely different. So that's like a Class-A EVP that we cannot explain.
He said, yank. What are you going to yank? Yank something. Yank the door. Yank the camera off. Look at you. Pissed at you. But yank the camera thing off there. You want to see something pissed? You can piss him off. You piss him off. You piss him off. And then we're going to go.
So this is Logan, Volta, and myself. We're in the Hell's Angel wing. And if I skip back to the previous slide, Logan is sat against this back wall. Volta is about halfway down. He's the one that you can hear talking. And I'm walking up and down the cell. I walk into this corridor. Obviously, all the lights are off. My camera pans down the corridor, and I've got a handheld camera, a body camera, and my audio device in my hand. I look down the corridor. There's nobody down the corridor. As I'm turning back into the room, that's when I heard that strange kind of noise. Again, I did not hear it at the time, but when I was reviewing my evidence, when I heard on the first device, I went to the other two devices and I could hear it on all three of them at exactly the same time. Again, I sent it to my buddy Joe, who deals with audio, and he could not decipher what that noise was. It wasn't a vehicle going past. The air conditioning had been turned off. There was no natural phenomena of what it could be. So we're very confused about what that is, and we're not saying that it's a spirit. We're just going to say that it's unexplained. And the final audio that we have. How many people died in here? How many people? So this is using a portal, and I'm in a different part of the cell that's away from the rest of it. I'm there by myself, and I asked the question, how many people died here? And towards the end of that audio, you can actually, I think I can actually hear the word 4. So I'm unsure exactly how many people did die because it wasn't just people that died due to hanging or for criminal purposes. People died of sickness as well. So that answer of 4 might just be where someone died in that particular area. So you guys can talk amongst yourselves what you think about those pieces of evidence, but we're quite confident about what we heard. However, if somebody wants to come up with an explanation of what they think it is, then we're all ears, because at the end of the day, it's trying to prove the existence of spiritual activity and paranormal activity. So if you guys want to have a listen and try to explain what it is, then be my guest. So moving on to a absolutely fabulous conservation area by the name of Mill of Kintail. As it says in the description, it's 152 acres. It's operated by the Mississippi Valley Conservation Authority in Mississippi Mills. This is not connected to the Mississippi River. We're up in Canada, and that's in the south. So there's 3 different buildings. You've got the grist mill, which is on the left. Absolutely fabulous little building. You've got the 19th century gatehouse, which is now the office to the location, but back in the day it was used as a general store. And then you have a creepy cabin in the woods that's about a 5-minute walk away from the mill. And if people go and do solos in there, pitch black at night, you do get some pretty cool EVPs. So one of the former prime ministers of Canada, can't spell for some reason, but William Leon Mackenzie King, he partook in seances while visiting the mill. And the mill was also visited regularly by a guy by the name of James Naismith, who I actually found when I came to Canada, he was the inventor of basketball. I thought it was invented in the US, but no, it was in Canada. So there's been many, many, many different experiences that they've had at the Mill of Kintail. Doors opening and closing and locking by themselves, furniture being moved, unexplained noises, knocking, chilly drafts, and motion sensors being triggered. Robert and Ethel Mackenzie, that owned the mill, are the ones that are allegedly supposed to be the ones haunting the location. Robert did sculpture in the studio of the mill, and you can actually hear him still working day to day on the odd occasion. Ethel was a pianist, and the piano is still on in situ. And once in a while, you can also hear a piano play. To get to this location from the road, you're talking about a 5 to 10 minute drive in your car. So it's in the middle of the woods. There's absolutely no way that there could be any other piano in any other area of that 152 acres that you're going to hear, apart from this one that's at the mill. There is evidence online of a table moving for this location. However, the location of the camera doesn't show enough to say that the table was not moved by somebody within the room. You've literally got the camera on top of the table while it moves, but you can't see any legs or you can't see all the arms. So I'm a little bit dubious about that particular evidence. But the video that I'm about to show you, there's me and Volta are in that location by ourselves. The building is 2 levels. It's got a basement and it's got the ground floor. Sorry, 3 levels, basement, ground floor, and then it's got a couple of bedrooms upstairs. We had a REM pod that we had upstairs in one of the haunted locations. We were in the kitchen area. So you've got a kitchen to one side and then you've got a dining room area. Volta suggests that we go down to the basement. I suggest that we get the REM pod so we can take down to the basement. The basement is very dark and dingy and very cramped space. So Volta heads down to the basement, and I head back upstairs to pick up the REM pod, and that's where the video starts.
Did someone just psst me?
So it always makes people laugh when I come out with, did someone just psst me? So I walked into that dining room area. You can hear the humming of electrical equipment, and you can also hear the high pitched of a smoke alarm that needs a battery replacing. But you do actually hear a psst. And I analysed that location. I thought I may have brushed past a table or chair. I tried to reenact that, and I couldn't get that same noise. It wasn't my shoes I was wearing. They weren't squeaky or anything like that. There wasn't a vehicle outside. There was no animals close by. The only other person close by to me was Volta, and he was one level below in the basement. So for me to hear that psst noise, and I actually heard it obviously with my ears, because you saw me spin round, and I've got all three devices going, my body camera, my handheld, and my audio, and it was on all three devices. I did send this off to somebody different who has a company in Halifax, and he has a guy that specializes in video, and they confirmed that the noise we heard was not added to the video. It was part of the video. They did not think that it came from a human or anything mechanical or electrical. So this piece of evidence is something else that goes on that unexplained pile, which we all get a lot of those. You know, these unexplained piles are getting higher and higher with stuff that we can't explain, but we can't also prove what it is or what it isn't. So for anybody that's into cryptids as well, this area of Ontario also has rumours and stories of the Wendigo cryptid being sighted in the area. If you want to go and Google what a Wendigo is, it's like kind of like a tall, bipedal male kind of structure person, and it's yeah. Some of the pictures are a bit like yucky. They're not very nice. It looks a bit terrifying, to be honest. Okay, another jail that we've got. This is the other side of Ontario. So this is called L'Oreal, or I always say it wrong and say L'Original, and everybody always tells me off, but it's pronounced L'Oreal Jail. And this is near a small town called Hawkesbury. So that's about another hour and a half in the opposite direction from Ottawa. Second oldest jail in Canada and the oldest jail in Ontario. And this one was also in operation from 1825 to 2007. 5 executions took place at the jail, including one, Joseph Menard, who got the nickname of the Devil of Cumberland. He murdered his wife and then lured away his 2 daughters and then murdered both of them. Joseph was a bit of a strange character. After murdering his wife, he then attempted to take his own life with the same axe that he killed his wife with. He survived, but then it gets even more gruesome. He took a metal spike and entered it into his brain through the wound he inflicted upon himself with the axe. This guy was pretty determined to end his life. So we've also got stories about the Shadow Man. This was first recorded when the jail was still open, and it was reported by several inmates of the jail. And even years and years and years after the jail closure, the Shadow Man is still sighted at this location. The last two people that were executed were William LaRocque and Emmanuel Lavicture. I'm not very good with my French accent, so that's the best I'm going to do. Lavicture was executed first, and it took 20 minutes. And then LaRocque's turn came, and then he told the crowd that they'd hung an innocent man, and it is believed that he tricked or intimidated Lavicture into helping him. And rumor has it that Lavicture remains in the prison forever, and he could be the Shadow Man. Some of the things that have happened in this location cannot be explained. So one of the regular stories is of a warden's daughter by the name of Ruth. She got the name of Petit Ruth. She actually died extremely young, and from what we can acquire from the stories, she must have had something like dwarfism or something similar, because she was an extremely tiny child. But she used to follow her father throughout the jail. So with L'Oreal, you'd got the warden's residence attached to the jail. So it was not uncommon for her to follow her father through the jail. You can quite often hear her singing throughout the jail, and that bassinet that's in the picture on the left, sometimes you can actually see that swinging, and they believe it's her that loves to play with the crib or the bassinet. So the picture in the bottom right is a replica of the gallows. And November of last year, a friend of mine by the name of Elliot was doing a public investigation. And a couple of days before, he asked me if he would turn up, if I would help him set up. Elliot is a big guy, like twice the size of me, and he does not like going into death row because it intimidates him. So the picture on the left is actually the crib in death row. So it's got a row of cells on the left-hand side and tables and such like on the right. Like I say, he does not like being there by himself. From where that position of the gallows is taken on the right, it's like a concrete walkway. So you come out the back of the jail, there's the courtyard. This is where the obviously the hangings used to take place. On that particular night that I went to help Elliot, my wife wanted to come with me. So she wanted a picture on the gallows. So she goes up those stairs, stands in the middle of the two beams, and I take a photograph. As she's coming back down the stairs, Elliot says to her, "The last three people that died at this jail are buried in these grounds. Can you have any idea where?" So as she's walking down the stairs and she's walking towards the left of the picture, she goes, "Oh yeah, there's one's buried here, one's buried here, and one's buried here." So I'm looking at Elliot, Elliot's looking at me. So like, "Well, how do you know?" And she went, "Well, it got cold, then it warmed up, then it got cold again, then it warmed up, then it went cold again." So I'm looking at Elliot, Elliot's looking at me, and he goes, "What the hell have you married?" I was like, "What?" And he went, "She's absolutely spot on. She actually got the location down to a T." So the fact that she'd never ever been to that location before, she somehow picked up that's where the 3 people were buried. As we're walking around the jail, Elliot's given us a guided tour. We actually came back to do an investigation a few months later. So I've got my handheld camera with me just to get a scope of what the location looks like. So to give us some idea of how many cameras we need to bring and what kind of equipment. And as we were walking around, Kelly, my wife, kept looking behind her. So I was like, what's going on? And she kept feeling like her trousers was being tugged. So she mentioned it to Elliot, and he says, oh, yeah, it's probably Petty Ruth, like, because she used to walk behind her father holding on to his trouser leg. So only she felt that sensation, but that's who we think it was that was actually tugging on the wife's clothes. As we are walking around the location, we walked into a room that was being converted. I'm not quite sure what it's being converted into, but it used to be a kitchen. And it was being redecorated. So when you walked in, there were decorators, boards, and like sheets on the floor. And there was a strong smell of paint. And the decorators had actually been in that day to do some more of the painting. And as I'm walking around that room, I suddenly got a stroke down the side of my face. Obviously, it freaked me out a little bit. I stopped. I looked round, couldn't see anything. My first assumption was that it would be a spider or a cobweb. But then when you think about it, the fact that it's being redecorated and you've got fresh paint in the air and you've got the decorators had been in that day, the chances of there being spiders or cobwebs are pretty much null and void. The chances of that spider creating that web or having that cobweb that quick, like, not impossible, but unlikely. And when I spoke to Elliot about it, he goes, oh yeah, people do get touched in this room. So, I can now add my story to I'm one of the people that have been touched. When we actually came to do the investigation a few months later, we had this medium with us from the US that came to visit. And I never told her about the fact that I was touched in this particular room. But she said, and when we did our investigation, the room was actually locked off. The door was closed, or it was a gate. The gate was closed and it was padlocked off. And she's looking in the room and she could sense, or she could see that there was a person stood in that room. And I went, well, what's he doing? Well, he just stood there looking at us. What, is he making any gestures? She went, no, he just stood there looking at us. Like we weren't supposed to be going any further. We couldn't because the gate was locked. So I was curious to imagine if it was the same person who stroked my face 3 months later, or 3 months earlier, I should say. So L'Oreal and Hawkesbury is quite a big French area of Ontario. So they actually separated the convicts for a particular reason. And it's not the normal reasons like, French convicts and English convicts. The only reason that they separated the French from the English convicts was the fact that they wanted to watch different TV shows. Obviously, some of them were in French and some of them were in English. And that is the only reason why this jail had segregated cells, was because of the fact that they wanted to watch different TV shows. But that is a really cool place to visit as well. It's got loads of creepy negative vibes and you never feel like you're alone in that jail. So the Watson Mill in Manotick. Manotick is about 40-minute drive away from Ottawa, and it is a historical mill that was built between 1859 and 1861. The owner of the mill, a guy by the name of Joseph Courier, he first lost 3 of his 4 children in 1855 within weeks of each other from scarlet fever. And then it's said that his wife Christine had died of a broken heart in 1858. In 1861, or in 1860, Joseph went to the US and met a woman by the name of Anne Crosby. And in 1861, he married her. And the mill had only just finished being built in 1861. So during their honeymoon period, he brought her to that mill for a visit. And this is back in the day, I'm sure Caroline will remember, when you've got those big bustle dresses that the olden Victorian women used to wear. And she wandered off from the rest of the group. And the picture in the bottom left, you see like a black pole just off center to the left. That was spinning machinery at the time. Her bustle dress got caught in that drive shaft and it threw her against that pillow to the left, struck her on the head, and she was killed instantly. Obviously, Joseph was a bit distraught, and rumor has it that after this second death of his second wife, he actually sold the mill and never went back. But one of the main stories of the mill is that a woman in a white dress is seen at some of these windows, both at the front and both at the back, not doing anything, just looking out. And that's one of the really good stories. We've visited this location a few times. Most recently, the picture on the bottom left, we actually were there with the radio crew who wanted a haunted experience for Halloween. And we had a lot of activity. So as it says in this slide, that Anne never left the mill, and she can be seen from second floor windows. So there's also a story of a young lad by the name of Tom, who he drowned close to the mill in the 80s, so really quite recent. And his name often comes up on the spirit boxes and other applications and noticed by mediums. So as I've just mentioned about some of the activity, this building has got 4 floors. It's got a basement, ground floor, first, and then the attic. In all locations, you are getting multiple EVPs. You get shadow figures. You get a lot of devices. Some people believe these devices, some people don't, but we have like a dead bell, an EMF dead bell, that no matter how sensitive you put the bell, it will always go off. And it goes off on command. If you ask a question, the bell goes off. If you're silent, the bell does nothing. So it's really weird how it goes off on command. And some of the EVPs don't like us. It keeps telling us to go away or to leave. So we're not quite sure if that's a different entity that's at that building. But it does come across as a negative entity. There are shadow figures that we see, but with the basement being extremely dark and the attic being extremely dark, the shadows and the shadow figures, I'm not 100% sure about that, because in darkness the eyes do play tricks on you. So I'm not 100% sure about those, but there's a lot of reports from other people that EVP shadows, EMF reactions from devices are absolutely really, really common. And there's not a night that you can go there where you won't get something. But then it's up to you as an investigator to break down and pull apart that evidence to see how genuine you think it maybe is. So One of our first investigations was, as a team, as us three, was a place called Beck House. I always say this location wrong, so I've got it written down, and it's Penetanguishene. I always say Pentanguishene, but it's wrong. It's Penetanguishene. And this is north of Toronto, so it's about an 8-hour drive away from Ottawa. Constructed in 1885 by Carl Beck, and it homed his wife and 9 children. Absolutely fantastic building. It looks like something from the Addams family. It's currently used as a Airbnb. So the top floors that you can see within the roof area are the locations of the rooms that are used for the Airbnb. The rest of it is a private dwelling. With it being an old building, there's no lift, there's no escalators. So depending on how much equipment you want to bring, you've literally got to bring it up all these floors by foot, up the stairs. So the Beck family still resides in their house after two centuries, and I don't mean living people, I mean spirits. Amelia, Mary, Hannah, 2 sisters, are the most prevalent spirits, and they passed at an early age. I believe one of them, or maybe more, died of tuberculosis. There are allegedly 18 spirits in total within the house. Not all of them are from the Beck family, but we do not know who the other spirits are. There's not been enough evidence produced to say who these people are. So Logan was in one bedroom, I was sleeping in another, and then Volta was sleeping in the lounge. And he heard a whisper late at night. He felt like he was tucked in from shoulder down to his knees. Literally, that somebody was tucking him in the bed. Logan, being a brave guy, did not open his eyes. He did not want to. There are scary dolls in that room, so there was no way that he was going to open his eyes. He knew that it wasn't Volta or I, but he's a bit of a coward. There was no way that he was going to open his eyes to find out what this was. Like I say, and the fact that when he woke up in the morning, and he could not tell us quick enough. I got tucked in last night, and we go, what? Yeah, and he was tucked in from shoulder down to his knees. This is another location that has a lot of EMF evidence. You go online and you Google this location, and there's a lot of people that say that they have a lot of EMF evidence. Now, one of my favorite pieces of equipment is the Tri-Field. I believe it's more accurate than the K2 because you can actually get numbers to go alongside your evidence. One thing that I picked up within this location was if you're in the dining room and the second floor apartment is exactly the same style and design as the Airbnb side of it, and the owner was saying that you get a lot of activity at the dining room table. I put the Tri-Field on the table and it was really going off quite high. I then put it on the floor and it was going off even higher. So that kind of told me that there was a lot of old wiring within that particular area. So any evidence that was produced from there, you would have to take into account the fact that there's dodgy wiring. So it's going to give off high EMF. When you walk into the lounge, again, where one of the sofas are, you also get a lot of high EMF. So I'm walking around with my Tri-Field, and sure enough, on one location, it literally went off the scale. But then if you walk around the wall into the kitchen, you've got a really big old-fashioned electrical box attached to a cooker. So again, a lot of high EMF in that location. So I think that a lot of the evidence that is said to have happened may be faulty wiring related rather than being of a paranormal. There's two rooms, so there's two different apartments on that floor, and we was actually in the furthest apartment away from the room I've just mentioned, and Logan was setting up some equipment, and he leant down to do the tripod or whatever for the camera, and he heard a whisper right next door to his ear. He thought it was either Volta or I. He turned round. Volta was at least 6 foot away, and I was in a completely different room. He cannot explain where this whisper come from. He's tried to analyze it and break it down. It wasn't Volta. Volta's not a ventriloquist. I was in the complete opposite room, so it wasn't me. And he was adamant that he heard a whisper next door to his ear. In that same room, we decided to have a REM pod. And we did, there's a kind of like a hallway between the two locations. So we had our all our base station in the hallway so that we could do solos in both locations. And we put a REM pod in one of the rooms, and we actually had activity of it going off independently. When we noticed it had gone off, I'd got the tri-field out, and there was no high EMF. There was no electrical cables nearby, no electrical equipment. We weren't using walkie-talkies. All our cell phones were on airplane mode and away from that room. So we cannot explain why the REM pod went off. It might be something natural, but again, it goes onto that unexplained pile. And one of the final pieces of evidence that we had, I can't remember what the owner's name was, but we heard her name mentioned on an ovulus. And then we heard something that really threw us a little bit. It mentioned the word sick or ill after mentioning the owner's name. We did not think anything of it at the time, but then spookily enough, out of the window, we saw an ambulance coming down the road. What made it even more spooky was that the ambulance pulled over to the side of the road, right outside the property. We thought this was too much of a coincidence, so we're looking at this ambulance. As it was, it may just have been a coincidence because the ambulance, after a few minutes, turned round and went back the same way. But the fact that it came up with the owner's name, the fact that it came up with sick or ill, and then you see an ambulance coming down the road, that kind of freaked us out a little bit. But we actually thought it was quite funny, however much of a coincidence it was. So, guys, that's the 4 really cool locations that I've been to in in Ontario. And if you guys now have any questions, now's your time. Thank you.
Thank you very much on behalf of everybody and all the members listening this evening, Lee. Thank you. Let's just have a little bit more of a deep dive into who you are before we start getting into the questions that we might have come up with. So what kind of skill sets do you think that you've brought from your previous roles in the RAF, firefighting and paramedic to your investigative roles? What have you got that's crossed over with you?
So the fact that I've been in uniform since I could basically walk almost in different forces, like you said, the RAF, the fire service and the paramedic service, you very quickly learn how people react to certain scenarios and how people's mindset is with regard to certain things. So if people come out with stories about this happened, this happened, this happened, the fact that you're trained to be a logical individual, you can very quickly come to the conclusion that, well, okay, it may be A, B, C, and D, but it also might be F, G, H, or I. You've always got a rational explanation because you're a rational, you're in a rational profession. So you do know that things may not be exactly what other people think they are. So the fact that I've been in uniform for a long period of time, you're bringing different skills from different trades, but you do stick with that logical head on your shoulders, and then you can kind of do a reality check on what some people say happened, and you can come out with a logical A, B, C, and D. And one thing about the paramedic service, I'm not sure if we spoke about it on our podcast, Caroline, but I was working with a new guy one night. This is a complete random story. And my regular crewmate was sick. So he came, first time I'd ever met the guy, got called to a cardiac arrest. We're doing CPR on this guy. And he literally just comes out of the blue, oh, you can stop doing CPR now. So I'm like, well, I'm the paramedic. You're the ambulance technician. What do you mean I can stop? Oh, the spirit stood behind you telling me that you can stop. It's like, what? Sorry, what? And he goes, oh, yeah, I'm a medium. Well, with all due respect, can you tell the spirit that I have to carry on? And he goes, oh, no, the spirit's fine with that, but just to let you know, he's not coming back. And the guy did pass him. We did declare him dead. It's like, dude, you can't tell me that in the middle of a cardiac arrest that you're a medium. So wait until it's quiet. When we was discussing football or the weather earlier, that's when you should have told me, not in the middle of a cardiac arrest.
I mean, how on earth would you cope with that information?
Yeah. I know, it completely blew me away. And I tell a lot of people about that because it's one of my best stories. It's like, you're doing CPR on this poor guy, and then, oh, yeah, the spirit stood behind you. So you're kind of looking over your shoulders, but you can't see anything. But he's opposite you, and he goes, oh, yeah, the spirit stood behind you. He's okay with this. I'm like, oh, okay.
So I love taking interviews on a track that they naturally go. So let's stay with this. As a paramedic and emergency provider of a service, have you ever had any other kind of incidents where you've had a paranormal thing happen while you've been on duty?
Well, that's a very good question because I did an interview for somebody who was a medium a few weeks ago, and she goes, "You've seen loads of ghosts and spirits," and I went, "No, don't think I have." And she went, "You have. You just don't admit it." So you often have a sensation of you're being watched or you're not alone. But because you're in a professional organization, you just put it down to the location or what's in the room at that time. So I cannot categorically say that I've had any other paranormal experiences as a firefighter or a paramedic. But you can walk into a location and you get goosebumps and stuff like that. So is that because of the environment or to what you're walking into, or is it of a paranormal nature? So it's very difficult to break down every single job I've been to, but I've definitely been at locations where I've had that uncomfortable feeling, but you can't rationalize it. And one of the, it's not really funny, but it kind of is. I went to a cardiac arrest, and this poor lady she had passed away. But as we walked into the kitchen, we could hear, I think it's Mozart's funeral march. So we're looking at each other thinking, where's this all coming from? Not realizing where we'd just walked through. We're literally almost holding hands thinking, where the heck is this funeral march coming from? The police then turn up. We go, well, can you hear this as well? And they could hear it. And then it turns out that there was a little box radio on a table in the corner playing I don't know, was it Mozart or Chopin's greatest hits? And it was actually playing the funeral march as we walked in to find this dead body. So there are experiences and incidents where you feel uneasy or you feel nervous and you get goosebumps and stuff, but can you put it down to a paranormal nature? I don't know.
Yes, I mean, I think you've been quite lucky that you've managed to avoid any kind of really memorable incidents that's going to stay with you. I think that's quite lucky in some respects. But thank you for telling us these little experiences you've had. So, in the paranormal, you were telling us that Logan obviously worked with TV and he's got the experience with media, and Walter worked in Japan and he's got these Wiccan skills that he's honed and things like that. What's your special interest in the paranormal?
So, I'm the one I get called the brains. Logan gets called the tech guy, and just for argument's sake, we call Walter the muscles, even though he hasn't got any. But one thing that I wanted to do before I came down this road was to get as much information as I can with regard to, in relation to the job I'm doing as a paranormal investigator. So I'm the one that goes on all the courses. I'm the one that reads a lot. So I've done courses on poltergeist phenomena, ghosts and hauntings, cryptozoology, even introduction into demonology. So I kind of get all the background of all the information and I take it on board. So I'm the one that's the logical one, and I can back up things that we experience with true fact rather than just hearsay from what other people have mentioned. So if we go to a particular incident and somebody says, oh yeah, this happens at the same time every week, well, I can go, okay, well, that's pointing to me, because I've done my research, that this is going to be more residual rather than anything else. So it's that I kind of bring that kind of job into our team, whereas I'm the one that goes on the courses. I actually teach a course on paranormal equipment over here in Canada. So I actually break it down for individuals, and I don't pull any punches. If I think this piece of equipment is like, you're just buying it because it's got the word ghost in front of it, I will tell you in the course. So I have my favorite pieces of equipment, and I have ones that I don't believe do the job. So I'm the one, I'm the fact keeper. If there's any research, I'm the one that does the research with regard to a property. So when we was at the SDG Jail, for example, I got a lot of the paper cutouts of all the criminals that was in the location. So I knew if we were doing like EVP sessions, I knew the names to call out to see if we'd got any response. So I'm the one that kind of does the academical side of it, so to speak.
Thank you for that. Of all the places that you've investigated so far in Canada and the UK, where would you say is your favourite place that you've visited so far?
I didn't really do much in the UK because I was a skeptic for the longest time. Like, you kind of get brought up, I was born in the 60s, and yes, it's kind of out there, but people never used to talk about it. So if you did kind of see something that was strange, you wouldn't really say, oh, that was a ghost. You just put it down to trick of the light or something out of the corner of my eye. But out of the locations that I've been in Canada, the two jails, L'Oreal and the SDG, have definitely been my most favourite, because that's where I've had the most evidence on different times. Like, the SDG has been on so many TV shows, and people always have experiences. I've not known anybody to go there to not have anything happen or for them to hear anything. So those two jails would definitely be one of my, the favourite locations. But when I was in the UK, I was one of the biggest fans of Borley Rectory. And growing up as a kid, everybody knew what Borley Rectory was. And as one of my courses, I did a paper on Borley Rectory, and I was absolutely heartbroken to find out that some of it was not as given. Yeah, I think it was Harry Price, the investigator. He was found with pebbles in his jacket pocket, and I was absolutely traumatized. Yeah, I joke when I say that I had to go for counselling, but it was like, oh my God, like everything that I loved as a child about that location, and a lot of it is not real. And that broke my heart. Borley Rectory did. I'm still suffering to this day.
So before I hand over to the angel, then I'm just going to ask you my last question. It's in relation to the Mill of Kintail. And I was listening to the sound. I had to take my noise reducing speaker out because obviously it removed half of it. So I heard this one. You said that it when it did the digital specialist, your analyst, tell you that it came on a different frequency than it did, because you mentioned that it wasn't on the frequency of human voice and it wasn't on mechanical instruments frequency. What frequency did he say? And also the second part of that same question is, did he say there was anything else remarkable about it? Did it lose its reverberation? Did it lose bass? Anything like that as well?
So I sent it to my normal audio guy, who he just kind of breaks it down. He doesn't go into as much technical detail as what you've just mentioned, but what he tends to do is he'll break it down and go, okay, this is your voice wave, this is the noise you heard, and it's two different but he doesn't go into what the frequencies are, because he knows that I wouldn't understand what he was talking about. So he doesn't baffle me with science, he just tells me what I need to know. And the other people that I sent it to, like I say, these guys are a big company in Halifax in Nova Scotia, and he has another audio and video guy, and he just did the, if you like, the police detective work, which you will relate to, the fact that he made sure that the noise wasn't separate from the video, wasn't added before or after kind of thing. But yeah, they didn't break it down into as much detail as what you've just mentioned, but they just confirmed that it wasn't tampered with, and it was a different noise than one that I made being present at the time.
Thank you for that. Just while we're on that, if you ever need any help or assistance in the future from ASSAP, please don't mind, don't hesitate in contacting and reaching out to us. We have an expert within the executive called Steve Hume, who would more than happily help you to have a look at some items as well. And anybody else who's watching this now as well, if you have any audio that you would like expertly looked at, Steve Hume from the executive director, you could message exec@assap.ac.uk, or you can send along your footage with a request of any assistance or help to nrpi@assap.ac.uk, and they will look at that audio, and Steve will probably give you a breakdown of the things that we were talking about just 2 seconds ago. So yeah, please, if you need any help in the future, even for a second opinion, just give us a bell.
Oh well, thanks so much.
That's all my questions that I've got so far. So Christian, I'm going to hand over to my tag partner, the angel.
Thank you very much for that. That was good fun actually to learn about Canada and its haunted locations. I guess in many ways, it's odd to say I didn't think there was any haunted locations in Canada. I just never considered it, which is a bit odd to say. But no, I guess when you're talking about the indigenous people, I mean, I guess their culture would also be an interesting dynamic to a lot of these haunted locations, because they come at spirituality in regards to their contact with what they are experiencing from a very different perspective. Have you found that, when you've been discussing that with them?
Yeah, so being part of Super Paranormal Chronicles, one thing that I've been trying to find somebody to talk about is skinwalkers. Skinwalkers are prominent within the indigenous community, and the indigenous spiritual beliefs are so strict and so governed through their history that to try to get people to talk about stuff like their religion and their belief is extremely hard to do. And because of some of the atrocities that's happened in Canada, they're now trying to protect, and they are doing it quite successfully, the indigenous communities. So to try to go into locations that's got indigenous history, indigenous heritage, is extremely difficult, because it's that old comment of you don't want to step on somebody's toes, so you don't want to offend them, you don't want to upset them. So to go into some of those locations, nigh on impossible, because of the history and the religious beliefs and stuff like that.
I kind of wondered whether you actually might find there'll be more people who are willing to talk about those experiences within those communities. Because I guess we all have curiosities. Even within that community, they're going, so what is this? How is it? How does it work? Where do these beings come from? Am I seeing or understanding this skinwalker, which I understand to be a person wearing the cloak of an animal who basically can shapeshift between different features and abilities? I mean, that in itself, from a anthropological perspective, I mean, even within their own communities, they would also be like, so what is this and where is it coming from? Where does it go? I don't know. Sometimes, mate, just go and having a conversation with them and just say, hey, so what's your thoughts on these people who are what's a portal mean? What does if I was to hear a sound here, are we talking about the same phenomena? And understanding it from that way. But no, it's interesting stuff.
Yeah, and one thing that I found is what you've got to find the right person as well.
For sure.
Because where I am in Ottawa, there is a lot of indigenous people, but you can't just walk up to somebody in the street and go, "Oh, you're indigenous. Can I talk to you about?" Because that just goes completely the wrong way. So you've got to find the right person to talk to, and the elders tend to be the ones that you need to talk to, but a lot of the indigenous what's the word I'm looking for? Settlements and villages are way, way, way outside of the cities.
Oh, right, okay.
So you do have people that live in the city, but you've got to then go and find the right place and the right person to talk to, which that then becomes a little bit of a tricky situation. And like I say, because of what's happened with the private schools atrocities and stuff like that, it's to start doing that, it's still an extremely sensitive subject.
Fair enough. I mean, so some of the questions I was thinking about as we were talking, you touched a lot of your cases there. You mentioned use of a medium, yet the word scientific is in your name. How does them two things go together?
Well, when we use the term scientific, what we tend to do, if we go to a location, we will try to break down everything that could be a possible cause to start off with. So we have anemometers for barometric pressure and for drafts and for winds. We check for black mold that has people know it can cause hallucinations. Like high levels of EMF can also create hallucinations and sickness and stuff like that. So we kind of break down the scientific and practical side of all investigations first before we start doing we're now going to try to communicate with whatever's there. And the fact that we have mediums come with us on occasions, we absolutely scrutinize what they do as well. So if I bring a medium into a location, to the best of my ability, they don't know anything about the location they're going to. I know in this day and age, it's a little bit impossible because you've got to give them the location before they come. But a lot of the history with regard to the individuals, what happened to them, you kind of keep to yourself. So you kind of see how much of that they can actually come. So you're actually studying them to do their abilities. So you're not just taking it as a pinch of salt that what they say is gospel. You've got to have factual evidence to back up what they're saying. Because a lot of people will go to a medium, and if they say, "Oh yeah, you're going to meet a wrestler by the name of Angel next week, and he's going to take you out for dinner," yeah, some people will take that as gospel, and they'll go around looking for this wrestler with like wings on the back and stuff like that. Whereas, like, well, okay, well, yeah, where did this name come from? How did you pick up this name? And we'll actually try and break down all what they've said, and then investigate it that way. So yes, we have had mediums involved, but a lot of the time they are involved in the investigation, but we still scrutinize what they do, and we just don't take everything as gospel. What they've said, we do try and get like evidence that what they're saying is actually fact.
Yeah, because I think you mentioned there was a case where I think you had a medium come into a room, and she said that there was a number of ghosts or figures within the room, and I think that's what you said. But she went into a room and she saw a room full of people who weren't physically there. I still wonder what it is that they're seeing. How are they seeing people? Are they seeing a memory? Are they imagining a memory? Is information being given to them collectively from a consciousness, whatever that form might be? Is it a kind of remote viewing? Is it a form of is it a temporal thing that they're seeing through time to when there was people there, rather than they're actually seeing ghosts? I still wonder what the mechanism there, or are they making it up?
Yeah, and that's a very good point. And like I say, I do scrutinize all that they say and do. And I don't know if you've been following the podcast, but a few weeks ago, I interviewed a girl who'd got mediumistic skills in California. And like, yeah, I'm central of Canada and she's right on the east coast of America, like a good 6-hour flight away. She's never been to my location. She did not. This is the first time I met her. And she said that she could astral project and that she could remote view. So I went, okay, let's put it to the test. So she asked my permission, which I gave, and she went, yeah, I'm now stood in your room next door to two dinosaur figures. And over in that far corner, you can't see, all you can see is this, but diagonally opposite, I've got a bookcase that's got 2 Lego dinosaur figures on it.
Brilliant.
And it's like, okay. And then I asked her to describe what was in front of the computer, and like, you can't see what's down here. And she went, I don't want to offend you, but it looks like you've got some toy action figures. And what I've actually got is some Lego Napoleonic people. And I've got them both sides, and she allegedly picked up on that. And then
that's pretty remarkable, yeah.
Yeah. And then I said to her, well, I can see the bathroom down the corridor because we live in an apartment. I says, what can you tell me about the shower curtain? She went, oh, you mean the one that's got polka dots? And I went, there's actually 2 shower curtains, one on the inside of the shower, one on the outside. She went, well, I'm not very good with these fantasy movies, but it looks like something from either Game of Thrones or Lord of the Rings. And I went, what other movie's got a castle in it? And she went, Harry Potter. And on the inside, the curtain, we've got, it's like water droplets. So it's not quite polka dot, but there's multiple of them. And on the outside, we've got the castle of Harry Potter.
Interesting.
So, like I say, there's no way that she could see any reflection of what we were talking about. She's never been to my property, but she didn't get everything 100%. But yeah, the dinosaur figures, the action figures, the shower curtain.
They're pretty specific, aren't they?
Yeah, exactly. And yeah, she also said that you've got a lot of stuff in your apartment, and we have bookcases all over that are all. I'm a big Lego fan, so I've got a lot of Lego all over. Like, this bookcase here is full. Another bookcase there, 2 more here, like 3 over there, and they've all got Lego on it or books or whatever. So she said, you've got a lot of stuff in your apartment. It's like, how the hell do you know that?
How does she? Did you ask her the question? How do you? Not how did she gain that ability, but how do you think that mechanism is working? Do you think that she's linking into you and you are providing her that information telepathically because you can see that space? Do you think that's the mechanism that's working rather than remote viewing, as opposed to a camera going to a place and then looking around the room and giving that information back? Is she picking up that information that psychically from you, perhaps?
That is a possibility. And I actually asked her, like, well, how are you seeing this? She went, it just feels like I'm there. And if she was kind of reading my mind, there's no way that I would have been thinking about the dinosaur figures that are over there. Like here, I've got like a rocket on a stanchion. I've got the Harry Potter castle in Lego, and I've got like the Orient Express train. So I would be looking in this kind of angle, not like sharp, diagonal in that direction. And she actually mentioned something about in the 3rd drawer down in the kitchen, right at the very back, you'll find a pie cutter. So everybody does have a utensil drawer, but it doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be the 3rd or the 4th, or whatever number drawer it is. But right at the very back, the wife pulled out two pie cutters in the exact location where she said they were going to be.
I wonder, because when we think about what remote viewing could be, is it like a pair of eyes wandering around a space in kind of 3-dimensional?
Yeah.
If we've all played a video game, you kind of know what walking around Halo or Doom's like. You can walk around first person. I've always wondered if we are remote viewing, what does that look like? Is it a sense of information, or is it actually a camera looking into that space?
Yeah.
Because like you said there about the drawer, for instance, being at the back of a drawer, in a kind of obscure drawer as well, that's also kind of specific. You kind of wonder what drew them to that point. What was in there, what drew her attention to look at that and then provide that information to you. All that kind of stuff is really remarkable.
Yeah, and it's like that, it pretty much blew my mind to what, she wasn't 100%. However, some of the stuff she mentioned was pretty damn accurate. And it's like, I don't know how you're doing this. And and like I just said, if she was reading my mind or if she was like telepathically doing it, whatever, if I'm looking at stuff here, she would describe something within a quite a short angle of scope, so to speak. But you wouldn't go to the kitchen. I'd got no idea about that pie cutter. I didn't even know it existed. I'm a man. I don't go into the kitchen very often. And like the dinosaurs are right over there, the far side of the room. So it's like, how?
Yeah.
But I could say to you, right, off camera that way, you've got 2 dinosaur figures, and you go, well, no, I haven't. I've got books, or I've got pictures, or I've got whatever. But she was specific. It's like,
does that mean that you're more open to looking at consciousness and psi-based abilities because of experiences like that?
Yeah,